I don't mean to brag, but I've beaten Elden Ring and the DLC, and I've also beaten Bloodborne. Now it's time to beat the game everyone considers the hardest From Software game, which is Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. After beating this game, I think I really enjoyed this game, a lot more than the other games that I've played so far, and one of the main reasons is just because that there isn't a stamina bar. The way I usually like to play games is just to keep performing unrelenting attacks until the boss is dead. This game lets me do all that without getting restricted by the stamina bar. In Elden Ring, I could technically upgrade the stamina meter in order to extend my attacks, but I'd still have to wait for the stamina to come back before I could keep attacking. At least in Bloodborne, you can kinda get a little bit more aggressive with the rally mechanic, but you're still kinda quelled by that stamina meter. In this game, you can be as aggressive as you want, just as long as you're able to parry or dodge the enemy attacks, which is a big win for me because it suits my playstyle. The positive effect that you have with having no stamina bar is that the combat is very fast paced. The other two just felt slower paced compared to Sekiro. Like you literally have to wait for the enemy to attack before you could dodge, which works against me mostly because I tend to get roll caught often because I'm pretty impatient when it comes to dodging. In this game, the enemy attacks aggressively enough to where I can kind of get rewarded for initiating the attacks rather than just, waiting for the enemy to strike. Like all those power fantasies of being engaging in some anime death battle is finally being realized here in this game, and I'm all for it. And let's not forget the biggest gameplay change that made me instantly love this game, which is the fact that you can pause the game in the middle of the battle. So just in case that the milkshake you ate from In-N-Out is like battling the insides of your GI tract, you can just pause the game without any consequences, and you can just freely take your time dropping off your kids in the swimming pool. If you know what I mean. But anyways, if you're ever wondering why they consider this game the hardest From Software games, it's because this game is not like your traditional Souls games. Instead of being able to assign skill points to your character and, kind of make your own builds, you are given just one main weapon throughout the entire playthrough. And also the fact that you kind of have to get used to some specific mechanics in order to have an easier time beating a lot of the enemies in this game. So you gotta get used to parrying and countering, which will take some time. Like in other From Software games, you can usually just chip at their health until they die. In this game, you could also do that. But there's another meter that you could also affect, which is their posture meter. The way you deplete this stat is by performing counters or parries. And then, you can just hit them too. But the parrying mechanic was a little tough to get used to, but I found out that you can kind of cheese this by just tapping the parry button at some set interval. In my opinion, it's far more efficient if you just kind of wait for the enemy attack and then parry accordingly. But if I can't get this down, best believe I'm gonna default to my little sword dance in order to compensate. The parrying in this game reminds me of a similar mechanic in Sifu, so if you're familiar with that gameplay, you might feel right at home in this game. But once you finally whittle down the posture bar, you're rewarded with a death blow, which is a cool execution move you can do on your enemies. Some of the tougher bosses out there will have more than one, so when this happens, prepare for a long but epic fight. Other things you have to worry about with the enemy is also dodging some of their unblockable attacks. You could simply just dodge them, but you can also do a cool counter move. For me, this took a lot of time to get used to. Like I will admit, I spent the first 4 hours just learning to dodge those unblockable attacks. And there was one specific boss I can recall that forced me to perfect this, which was when you meet Genichiro on top of that tall ass building. Like in my opinion, this boss is the perfect way to determine how well you will do for the rest of the game, because he forces you to perfect every single thing they throw at you, which is parrying, the jump counter, and the Mikiri counter, just to beat him for this 3-phase boss fight. And then you have to master this new technique, the lightning reversal, because apparently this guy can throw lightning at you. But once you master it, it's kind of the most satisfying move you can do in the game. Like you basically hit the equivalent of a reverse Uno card on the enemy, and then they just begin to convulse on the floor while you do some nice follow-up damage to them. Many bosses in this game were so fun. They offered a lot of flashy combos that were very satisfying to parry, while, offering ample opportunities to flex the new counters that you spent a good chunk of the game mastering. The only boss I didn't like was the Guardian Ape and then the Demon of Hatred, just because they weren't really fun to parry. And also, I kinda got tired of looking at the nutsack of the Demon of Hatred. The Divine Dragon was pretty mid. I liked that it was the most cinematic fight compared to the other bosses, but I just expected more from the fight, Like I wanted an opportunity to throw some hands with this giant-ass dragon wielding this big-ass stick sword, but instead, we just spammed lightning reversal attacks till his posture wore down. Other than that, the only thing I had a hard time adjusting to was just jumping from platform to platform, which is frustrating because in every From Software I've played so far, I've fallen more times to my death than an enemy has physically dealt damage to me. And then in this game, it feels a lot worse, like it's amplified tenfold. Maybe it's because I feel like Sekiro should just naturally do like a double jump or something, but instead, he just kicks the air as he falls to his death. But after spending some time, learning the sweet spots for the jumps, it honestly wasn't that bad. But it's still frustrating though when you die from a fall or the grapple indicator just refused to work. It also took me some time to adjust to like the gameplay of Sekiro, because you're technically a ninja, so you're not supposed to 20v1 every encounter. What a shinobi does is he just strikes in the shadows in order to stack the odds in his favor, which is why they added the ability to scale buildings and crouch in order to be able to do that, for you to like sneak around and do all that shit. The stealth also gives you the chance to reduce a whole stage by sneaking up to the enemy and performing a sneaky death blow, which is very important since you'll literally cut the boss's health in half. So it might be worth it to do some sneaking around to get that freebie. Most of the time I prefer to just run and gun because that's how I get the most enjoyment out of this game. Sometimes it works out and other times it turns into a gank similar to some For Honor type shit, where you're just playing defense until you're able to execute one of the persons from the group. Uh-oh. Okay, we're cooked. Fuck. It's like For Honor all over again. The PTSD's kicking in. But anyways, you're probably wondering why the game is called Shadows Die Twice, which is my same question at the beginning of the game, until I got humbled by the first mini boss they give you. Then they started explaining the whole concept of like resurrection. So whenever you die from an enemy, which will often happen in this game, you are given the option to resurrect in order to finish what you started. This isn't done just for player convenience, but rather it is tied alongside the story of the game. It's because the Dragon Heir kind of gave you the power to be able to resurrect. The downside of this power is that people will get sick over time, and the more you utilize this power, more people will get afflicted by the Dragon Rot, which kind of sucks, you know, because if you have some side quests and they happen to get sick, like you can't really do them until you heal it. And you know, of course, you know, Sekiro and then the Dragon Heir feel bad that this is all happening, so they set off on this quest to kind of sever this immortality. Pretty cool, right? They managed to explain it in the lore while also tying it to the main story. I love it when games explain shit to make it make sense instead of expecting players to just accept it. And I also like the fact that we can replay some of the bosses that we've already beaten. Like, why doesn't every From Software have this? There are so many amazing bosses in From Software games. Like, I don't understand why we don't have the option to just replay that specific boss. I would definitely love to fight like Melania or like Orphan of Kos just one more time, but I just don't want to run through the entire game again just for that one opportunity to fight them. Like, if they were gonna make another From Software game, I really hope that they just add this feature in there somewhere. But overall, this game was my personal favorite out of the 3 that I've played so far. Cutscenes in this game could easily be produced by Christopher Nolan. Like, it's that beautiful. And then the game also provides us with a lot of fast-paced and satisfying gameplay. So, like, what's not to love? Like, I can see why this won Game of the Year. Like, it is that good. So if you're on the fence about picking this game out, don't be. Like, it literally won Game of the Year. And plus, once you get the combat down, it becomes very fun and addicting. So what are you waiting for? Pick it up, get humbled, start your anime arc, and then come back stronger. But anyways, if you guys liked the video, go ahead and hit the like and then subscribe, and then I'll see you guys on the next one.